gentlemen, welcome to Mock Draft 8.0 and the first ever two-round mock draft. Thanks a lot for coming out. I was on the fence about whether I should do the full mock draft in this video or if I should break it up into two, and I finally decided just like 8 seconds ago that we're going to do two separate videos, because you figure if there's 64 picks, the absolute max I like to do on these videos is an hour. I'm actually shocked so many people like these hour-long videos. I keep getting to an hour and thinking, man, this is too long. Nobody watches hour-long YouTube videos, but people are watching. So, but I still want to keep it a max of an hour, and having 64 picks in an hour with an intro and talking about each pick and recapping, because some teams now have multiple picks. The Browns, I think, have 5. It's just going to be pretty much impossible. So this will be mock draft 8.1. So this is how we're going to start doing it. Just rather than just being 0.0 to make it look cool, it's going to be, the mock number dot round number. So 8.1 is going to be this video. 8.2 will be the next video. Beyond that, if you haven't watched before, most of you know the routine, but I'll keep it short. Facebook group, Twitter, email, and donations are very much appreciated. All those links are in the description. I also have a link to my Packers website for any of you that are interested. I figure 1/32 of you at least are Packers fans, so be sure to check that out, packernet.com. I do the podcast over there. I do have also some affiliate links down below. It's just another way to support me. I'm not asking you to do anything you don't want to do, but it's all football related stuff. So if you do FanDuel or DraftKings, I have an affiliate link down there. Just if you're going to pump a little bit of money in there, just if you wouldn't mind, click my link before you do it. Same with Pro Football Focus. They have some amazing stats and analytics for not just pro football, but college football. They have some really awesome in-depth stuff. So if you're planning on pumping some money to them, please use my affiliate link. That would just be a way to support this channel. And lastly, a little bit of news. I mentioned in the last video that I did. There is going to be a website up and coming. It's a lot of work. It's crazy. It's not actually hard. The hard stuff's already done. Just a lot of busy work and a couple bugs to work out. It's going to be a while, but I just want to give you a heads up. There is a website coming. The basic premise, and there's going to be a lot of stuff added to it, but it's going to be big boards, team boards, overall position boards, one giant college big board, all that kind of stuff, and plus team need, all this stuff. But basically, it's all based on you. You do the voting, so it's going to be that. But it's instead of expert picks, it's the viewers, the voters, whatever. So I'm excited about it. I think it's really cool. Again, this whole thing is about getting you guys involved and getting your opinions and your insights. So that's what we're doing. But with the show, let's get rolling here. Also, I'm going to do my best to do shout-outs, but this draft was, although it was one of my favorites for a lot of reasons, and you know what? Real quick, before I get into this, I need to give a special shout-out, because these drafts are always really crazy, and every time I do it, I think it's going to be less crazy, and this one, for me at least, was less crazy. But the big reason why I was able to relax a little bit is because of one of the members of our Facebook group, Keelan. The guy, I don't know his age, but he's clearly very young. He's not in college, let me put it that way, but he just stepped up to the plate. I think he earned the respect of a lot of guys in the group. He basically took over and ran the draft, so I just want to give him a shout-out. But anyways, in terms of shout-outs, beyond that, it's going to be real tough, because literally 75% of the people that signed up for teams didn't show up, so a lot of these are just group picks. So maybe you get a shout-out, maybe you don't. If you don't, I apologize. But with the first pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Josh Rosen, quarterback out of UCLA. I have a feeling I'm going to get tired of saying that one, but it just makes the most sense. Josh Rosen, I think, is arguably the best quarterback in this draft. It's maybe the safest pick. You could say Baker's more talented, but there's so many question marks about his NFL readiness and about his, you just compare him to Johnny Manziel, and instantly, especially Browns fans and the Browns organization, you would have to assume is a little worried about that. But it's a position. It's probably the biggest position of need. It's the most important position. He's maybe the best overall player in the draft, arguably. I don't know how you go anywhere else with it. So that was a group pick, and I think everybody was pretty satisfied with it. I think it makes the most sense. There are other names that are out there, and who knows what's going to happen as time goes on. But at this point in time, there just isn't a pick that makes more sense in my mind than quarterback Josh Rosen. Next up, with the second pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Sam Darnold, quarterback, USC. Somebody mentioned it in the comments. This is another one. The guy didn't show up, but somebody mentioned it in the comments. It was not the pick I was going to make, but I thought, you know what? It's a different name. Let's just go with it. He still has a ton of respect, and I understand a lot of people saying he's not coming out. I don't know. We'll see about that. A lot of guys are saying they're not coming out. Trey Adams and a few other people, but I can't find it out of the horse's mouth himself. I can't find anything necessarily official. And I just wonder sometimes if, you think about the amount of money these guys are going to, especially Sam Darnold. I mean, he could go number one, number two, top five. You think about the amount of money involved in that, and you're going to go back to college and risk losing out on all that money and all that fame and all that success. Why? Because maybe the Browns will pick you. And by the way, I don't even think that's the case anymore. I think Josh is ahead of you by a mile. I don't know. But anyways, it's a thing that I'm torn on. I'm not the biggest Sam Darnold fan. I see a lot of flaws when I watch him play. I'm not, I say this every time, but I have not put in the amount of work that I should be putting in. But the few games that I've watched him play that I've sort of just skimmed, it's just, I don't know. It's not there. If I hadn't heard his name, if I haven't heard so many people say he's this elite first overall talent, I'd probably watch him play and go, I don't know. Second round? I'm not sure. But be that as it may, there are a lot of people that feel that he is the best to come out in a while, better than Josh Rosen. So I think second overall, if he does declare, and if the Browns do go Josh Rosen, I don't think it's all that unrealistic. It probably wouldn't be my pick if it was just me doing it, but trying to keep it somewhat democratic, I went with Sam Darnold, and I think the Giants will be happy with that pick. Next up, with the third overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Saquon Barkley, running back out of Penn State. This, I believe, is our first GM pick, so glad to have somebody on the board. This was GM Justin who threw in the card for Barkley. I mean, it's one of those value things, I think. With all things being equal for this team, offensive line maybe is the biggest need. You'd like to see him go wide receiver. Cornerback is a big issue. Linebacker, maybe safety. They have a lot of needs. They do have a rookie running back on top of, Gore. Whether or not Gore's coming back, I don't know. But bottom line is they could use an upgrade at running back. It's definitely not the biggest position of need that they have. If they were, and I didn't allow trades in this group, so you can't say, well, he should have traded back. Possibly trading back is the best way to go. We'll see what happens with these offensive linemen. I'm curious to see how high some of these tackles and that guard, you know who I'm talking about, move up. I know there's a lot of people that say a guard would never go this early. I tend to think that that's true, as much respect as I want to give them. I also don't know if the tackles are ever going to get this high. I think, I don't know. We'll see. I just saw somebody post an article saying the Browns are considering quarterback, Minkah Fitzpatrick, or offensive tackle, which kind of blew my mind because we're talking about the first overall pick. So clearly some people are thinking that maybe there's some very worthy tackles in this group. We'll see what happens, but at this point in time, the way the big boards are stacked, I think Saquon Barkley makes a lot of sense. I think it's going to be an instant upgrade, especially when you get your elite quarterback talent, Andrew Luck, back. You definitely have to start attacking offensive line, though, in the future. That would be my priority. We'll see what happens. All right, next up, with the fourth overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cleveland Browns select Minkah Fitzpatrick, safety out of Alabama. They have the number 1 and the number 4 right now. Can you even believe that? And their pick is coming from Houston, who lost their quarterback and can't seem to continue to win games. They're a 4-10 team, and they're tied with the 49ers, the Bears, and Tampa Bay. So it's possible Cleveland could move up. It's possible they could continue to fall because the Indianapolis Colts are behind them. I'm not going to bother to look into this any further, but I'm just saying, imagine how crazy it's going to be to have them having 2 top 5 picks. But yes, being able to get Sam Darnold and Minkah Fitzpatrick, if you're a Browns fan and don't like this scenario, I can't help you. Now, maybe you prefer Derwin to Minkah. I've heard a few people say that. Maybe you prefer a different quarterback. I don't know. But to take, one of the top 3 graded, talented players in this draft, especially a defensive back, which, if you look at Pro Football Focus, and I can't give away specific grades or anything, but I'm looking at it, and it's one of those situations, and it happens rather often. Maybe I should contact Pro Football Focus and get some clarification on this, because they're actually pretty good about getting back to me about stuff. But they actually have a decent cornerback group and a not horrible safety group from what I'm looking at. Contrast that with the fact that outside of Ogunjobi and Garrett, they don't have a very good offensive line. Nassib is kind of average. They don't have very good linebackers overall, but their run defense is number 1 in the NFL. So comparing grades to stats, it just doesn't match up. There's no question at all that their run stopping is something special. You add in a defensive back and a new quarterback who's going to be paired with Josh Gordon and now Duke Johnson. On top of that, they went and grabbed J.C. Treader off the Packers, who's a pretty good football player, Kevin Zeitler at guard, Joel Bitonio at guard. They're going to be getting Joe Thomas back, who's one of the best tackles in the NFL. They definitely need another tackle, but we're talking about a team. Listen to me very closely, and this is why I've been saying for a very long time now, this team is on the verge. They haven't won a game. They have the best run defense in the NFL. They have decent pieces. Jason McCourty is a decent corner. They have Jason McCourty. They have Derek Kindred, who's a second-year player, has played pretty decent this year. Now you got Minkah Fitzpatrick sitting back here at free safety. You got Jason Garrett and this run-stopping dynamo. You've got a great offensive line. You've got one of the best quarterbacks to come out in a while. You've got a dynamic 3-down back in Johnson. You've got one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in Josh Gordon. You add 1 or 2 more pieces, there's zero reason this team can't be awesome. And they have 5 picks. They have 3 second-round picks coming up. This team, I'm telling you, if this team, and I've said this before, if this team doesn't win a Super Bowl by 2020, I'm done. If they're not in the playoffs by 2020 at the very least, they need to sell the team and give it up. I don't care if they were close to getting. I'm talking playoffs by 2020 or call it over. There's no excuse. With all the picks they had last year that should be taking second-year leaps this year, they got a new talented GM. They've got a coach with a lot of respect. They have more talent, more early first-round, early second-round talent on this team than any team in the NFL. No more excuses. Playoffs by 2020 or pack it up. All right, moving on. Next up, with the 5th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Mike McGlinchey, offensive tackle. So, the 49ers seemingly struck gold with Garoppolo. It was a big question, right? Is he a system quarterback over there in New England, or is he a legitimately good quarterback? And I think it was kind of split on that, but based on what I'm seeing, it would be hard to argue that the 49ers have any kind of system that Garoppolo just seems to be fitting into nicely. They're just a really bad football team. So he's coming over here. They don't have much of a run game. They don't have an offensive line. They don't have much at tight end. They don't have much at wide receiver outside of maybe Marquise Goodwin. Their defense is no good. Obviously they have some really talented pieces, but they're not very good. And he's playing very well. He's based on these Pro Football Focus grades, take out Foster and Buckner on the defense and Staley from the equation. Garoppolo is the best player on this team already. So a lot of work to do, a lot of places to go, but I definitely respect the fact that if we're going to take this seriously, if we're going to grow this team, one of the primary things we have to do is protect this quarterback and help out this quarterback. So you've done some good things with defense, again, Buckner and Foster, and that's going to take a very long time to continue building that defensive line, get more linebackers. These corners are no good. The safeties could probably use a little bit of help, whatever. But offensive line is one of the top priorities. Probably could have gone guard here, but if he's your top offensive lineman, that's fine. Staley obviously is great at left tackle, so if you're going to get a tackle, you want to make sure it's a guy that can play right tackle. So we're presuming that that's where Mike McGlinchey is going to go, play right tackle. And I don't hate the pick. It's just it depends on your value of Mike McGlinchey. That can be up to you personally. Let me know in the comments section. Mike McGlinchey, from what I've seen, has been high on the boards. He's been low. He's kind of moved up and down, but he's been pretty consistently one of the first or the second guys to go as far as tackles go. And in terms of need, the right tackle that I'm looking at right now is probably the worst lineman that they have. So that's also maybe the biggest need along the offensive line. Yeah, I think it's a good pick. Oh, and by the way, the GM for that is Brady. And the reason he didn't take guard, I'm glad I looked at this note, some further insights from the GM himself. He said there's lots of guard depth in this class. So, for that reason, it makes sense. How much, that's the other thing too, that I don't really consider, and it's probably why guards don't go quite so early, is exactly what Brady said right here. Guard talent tends to fall, kind of like center talent you can find later on. Tackle talent, if you're a talented tackle, teams take you early, which means that if there's any talent at all, by the third, fourth, fifth, sixth round, it starts to get very iffy. Occasionally you get lucky with a guy like David Bakhtiari, who, by the way, according to PFF, I know I'm not going to give away specific grades, but let's just say you're not going to find a better tackle in the NFL than David Bakhtiari. He was a fourth-round draft pick, but that's a very rare thing. By round 4, they're pretty much all gone unless you get lucky. So if you need a tackle, you got to take them early. There are some really good tackles early on. So yeah, absolutely with that, especially when you have early round picks, a guy like Hernandez or whatever. I don't know, maybe that is what they pick, maybe it's not. But guys like that early second round, there's a lot of real good talent. So if you're going to continue to build, and if you're looking at it saying there's a lot of guard depth, I think it makes sense. So some intelligent scheming by the 49ers GM Brady. Next up, with the 6th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Derwin James, safety, Florida State. So this was a new pick for the Bears, and it was a new GM, AJ. AJ decided that he wasn't going to go the route with wide receiver. He didn't leave me a note. Well, you know what? Let me scroll down a little bit. Yeah, here we go. I wanted people to put comments written underneath their picks, but sometimes they commented later on, so I got to watch for that. So here was his thought. Because I didn't allow trades, he thought wide receiver wasn't a good value. He would have liked to have traded down, but because he can't, he's not going to reach on a wide receiver. He decided to take who he thought was the best player available, and that is Derwin James. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially depending on how much you like Derwin James. Some people think he's better than Minka. In terms of need, kind of iffy. They have two safeties that are graded as average. The bigger concern I have is when I think when I think Derwin James, I think strong safety because he's big and physical. I don't know his ability to play free safety. I'm assuming being drafted this high, he has that ability. If he can, you probably want to put him at free safety to take over for Chris Przinski. He's a little older and a little less talented. Eddie Jackson is a rookie this year, so replacing him is very unlikely. So it's going to be Derwin James and Eddie Jackson, two very young guys to grow in that secondary as safeties. Which one plays free, which one plays strong, I don't know. I would think if you can move Eddie Jackson to strong safety, that's your best bet, just because Derwin James is such a big physical dude. But, I think free safety is probably the most important position. If he can play it, if he can be that sideline-to-sideline guy, that is an incredibly important position. So if he can do it, you're going to put him there. Either way, that's going to be your secondary going forward. I think it's an important piece, especially in the NFC North, not just with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, but now you got the Vikings with Stephon Diggs really stepping up in that class. The Lions are very pass-happy team, so in the NFC North for the Bears, it makes a lot of sense. You're going to want to bolster that secondary. You got Amukamara and Fuller and Callahan. Pretty good corners. Now you got a pretty good safety group. Continue to build, especially offense throughout the draft. Obviously, wide receiver is a big priority, but there's some other rounds to consider. So a new name always makes me happy in these videos. Derwin James to the Bears. Next up, With the 7th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Bradley Chubb, edge rusher out of NC State. I know they never announce it edge rusher, but that's what we're going to do here because I just prefer that. I like defensive line and edge rusher because there's just so much nuance in there. You know, he's a 3 tech, he's an outside linebacker in a 3-4, whatever. Defensive line, edge, linebacker, corner, safety. There you go. Done. But anyways, this is becoming a popular pick. I also still really like Derwin James to the Bucks. It just, in terms of need, in terms of being a Florida guy and all that. But I think those two picks are definitely my favorite. Bradley Chubb has been a very popular one for the Bucks lately. I've talked about it pretty extensively already. And this pick, by the way, the GM didn't make it directly, but he made it indirectly by giving me his big board. But I've now heard Bradley Chubb, and again, I'm very excited. Whenever I get things right, and I shouldn't even say I get things right. He could be a bust, but it makes me happy, like I know what I'm talking about. Because Bradley Chubb, again, he was a late first round guy. At one point, he was behind Durant's Armstrong, and I watched him, and he just jumped off, and I said, this guy is just awesome. And to now see him, I just saw him recently go #1 overall. I don't know if it was a big board or a draft, but it was very exciting to see that. He's my guy, Bradley Chubb. Much respect for him. Falling to #7 to the Bucks, it might just be too good to pass up. I don't know if there's anyone else you could take. It's not even worth looking at need, to be honest. As long as they don't have two very good edge rushers, which they don't, the Bucks taking Bradley Chubb is just an awesome piece. Next up, and by the way, Ethan. I don't know if I mentioned his name directly, but Ethan, and he's the one that has the Bucks Nation page. I'm not going to try to remember how that goes, but Bucks Nation on that one thing, Instagram or whatever it is, I don't know. I don't know these things. I'm a 30-year-old, 70-year-old man, basically. Next up, with the 8th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Cincinnati Bengals select Quentin Nelson, guard, out of Notre Dame. Now, the second Notre Dame offensive lineman to go in the top 8. That's pretty incredible stuff. The Bengals, I mean, it's kind of an old deal at this point. I want new names, but passing on Quentin Nelson when he's probably the best offensive lineman in the class, with the Bengals needing pretty much every offensive lineman they can find, it's too easy of a pick. It's too good to pass up. So done deal. Next up, with the 9th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Baker Mayfield, quarterback, Oklahoma. Between Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson, I don't know if there's two more exciting people in this draft in terms of who's going to take him, right? Baker Mayfield, extreme talent, but tons of question marks, right? Lamar Jackson, extreme talent, tons of question marks in terms of translation into the NFL, in terms of a lot of different things. And it's what makes the draft really exciting for me personally. When you hear that pause, when you hear the Denver Broncos select, and then there's that pause, and then you hear a name like Baker Mayfield, a guy that you don't know if he's going to go #1, you don't know if he's going to slide into the second round, you don't know what's going to happen, and that name goes off, and it's like, what? Are you kidding me? It's a lot of fun, and to be honest, here's what I would like to do, and I don't know if anybody would actually watch it, because why would you if you have it on TV? But what I think would be a lot of fun is to do a live stream during the draft, to have our own big board up, to be able to kind of go through that big board, kind of cross off names off the list, maybe even have a couple people on, like a Skype chat or something, to just have our own little dialogue going on. We could have a chat section where you guys could chime in with your own things or whatever. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I'd like to get that set up. But anyways, Baker Mayfield to the Broncos. I like the pick. I like Baker. I'm not overly concerned about his off-the-field red flags in terms of his translation into the NFL. I just, with how good he is in college, I just have a really hard time thinking he's not going to be pretty good in the NFL. The Broncos have a supreme need at quarterback. They've already said that they really want to go quarterback. I think in this scenario, Baker Mayfield makes the most sense. I know eventually somebody is going to hate this pick, but it doesn't matter. I don't really care. A lot of people get angry. That's your prerogative. We just have fun in the NFL group. And that's what we did here. I was the one that ultimately made this pick because the GM wasn't here. I obviously therefore like the pick. So Baker Mayfield gonna help bring this Broncos team back to greatness. Next up, with the 10th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Lamar Jackson, quarterback, Louisville. See what I mean? And then what's cool about it is you have some people screaming, "Yeah!" And then you got some people just booing and like, "I hate this team." And that's exactly what would happen with this kind of a pick. Quentin Nelson gets picked and everyone's like, "Yay!" and they high five because it's offensive line. You don't get overly excited about it, but you know it's a good pick, so you're happy. So you give a cordial high five to the person next to you that you just met 5 minutes ago because, "Oh, congratulations, sir, our team is better." "Oh, yes, nice to meet you. Shall we go home now?" "Yes, sounds wonderful." But a pick like this, oh, that's what makes the draft, man. Just seeing fans just, they bury their head in their hands and they're wrinkling their hat. They're like, "No! Another 4 or 5 years of misery. I can't believe it." But then we get to watch, the first game, and everybody's watching. Who watches the Jets? Nobody cares about the Jets. I will. If Lamar Jackson goes to the Jets, I'm watching him because you know why? As much as people want to say he's RG3 2.0, when I watched this guy play, I saw Mike Vick, and it brought me back to the glory days of Mike Vick when he ran wild on the Packers and I was just screaming at him because I hated him because the Packers could never stop mobile quarterbacks and there never was a mobile quarterback like Mike Vick. And I watched the guy play and I understand. Doesn't work too well in the NFL. It's hard to be that kind of a quarterback in the NFL. But this guy has elite level speed. He is so fast. And oh yeah, well guys in the NFL are fast. No, he's faster than your linebackers. I know a lot of people are saying that. You can outrun college linebackers. Good luck, dude. Go Google his 40 time. Dude is fast. He's getting better as a passer as well. I'm not saying he's going to be great in the NFL, but what I'm saying is all it takes is one GM. All it takes is the Jets to look at this guy and say, "You know what? He can throw the ball." Yeah, he overthrows some stuff sometimes. So does Cam Newton. He's a decent quarterback still, right? I mean, just imagine Cam Newton if he was a lot faster. And the guy's got a cannon for an arm. It's just everything's there. At the very least, you can bench him for a year and try to coach him up a little bit. I mean, do you have NFL level coaching staff on your payroll? Do you pay coaches to do nothing but coach up quarterbacks? Do you have that guy? I'm pretty sure you do. Can you coach this guy? Can you teach him a little bit about footwork, right? He kind of gets, a little stiff with his hips and all this stuff. Yeah, whatever. Do you think you can teach him a couple mechanical things? Because, this is a guy who can plant his feet and just flick his wrist and this thing's going 50 yards. He has, and that's again why I look at him and see Mike Vick. Just a flick of the wrist and that ball sails 50 yards. And when he takes off running, he's got these long legs. It doesn't even look like he's moving that fast, but he's just burning past people. He might be a bust, but I just watch the guy and I get excited. And I promise you, I will be watching the Jets' first game if they take him. So, personally, I'm excited about Lamar Jackson. Maybe he's no good. Maybe he's going to fall. I don't know. But I think he is one of the more exciting prospects in this draft. I'm excited to watch him. I really hope, for the sake of the NFL and the excitement level and for the sake of Lamar Jackson and for the sake of my enjoyment watching this game, that Lamar Jackson is Michael Vick 2.0 and not RG3 2.0. The GM, by the way, in this case was not me. It was Joey, who's done some mocks for us in the past. Here's what he had to say. "Though I'm tempted to take Josh Allen, I have to think Allen will need to sit a year, so that would make another Jets quarterback taking a redshirt status. Lamar Jackson can start right away, has an underrated arm, and he is improving year after year this far." And that is a big thing, too. If you were talking about last year, Lamar Jackson, I think, had a lot more question marks. It's my understanding anyways, I haven't been watching his entire career and watching every one of his games, but it's my understanding he took a massive leap this year and has tried very hard to be a pocket passer and has done quite well doing so. Not perfect, but you add in the athleticism with the fact that, just on arm talent alone, he's a whatever talent. And the progress he's made, that just demonstrates his ability to learn, his coachability. And then, again, with all the athletic talent. And as Joey said, we want a guy that could start right away. We don't want a guy to sit on the bench. So we're taking Lamar Jackson. I don't hate the pick. I'm excited about it. Maybe part of the reason is because I'm not a Jets fan, and if it doesn't work out, I don't care, so the risk doesn't bother me. But I don't know, for my enjoyment, for my excitement, if I'm watching the draft, I'm screaming right now. I'm excited. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Let's go, Lamar. Next up, with the 11th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Cortland Sutton, wide receiver out of SMU. This was a group pick. It was the first group pick. I think this was the point in which the draft where the participants, the guys that were in it all along, there was a big group of very loyal people that were here from pick 1 to pick 64 or whatever it is. Keelan wasn't the only one. I just gave him a special shout out because of what he did. But there were quite a few people who stepped up, and when a GM didn't show up, they were doing polls and they were polling each other. And there were even times I had to step away, and because I have a full-time job, and they just kind of just ran it. And I came back, and there were 4 new picks there. So these guys really stepped up. But this was the first group pick. It's a new name for the Cardinals, so I'm excited about that. Cortland Sutton going somewhere other than the Bears for once, which is nice. The group's reasoning was thusly, and this was put out by Anthony, so I'll give him a shout out since he posted this. He said the Cardinals are planning for a future without Larry Fitz while getting a great option to play next to a future Hall of Fame player now. Oh, excuse me, play next to the future Hall of Famer right now. I read that when I first read that, I was thinking they were saying Sutton's going to be a future Hall of Famer, but he's playing next to a Hall of Famer. Yeah, I think, and Larry Fitz just he keeps putting out, man. I shouldn't have put it that way. That sounds wrong. He keeps putting up good numbers. He keeps he just, I love Larry Fitzgerald. Is there anyone that doesn't like him? I was surprised when I said everybody likes J.J. Watt, one of my best friends. Turns out he hates J.J. Watt with a passion. I didn't think that was possible. But if you don't like Larry Fitzgerald, maybe divisional opponents don't like him, but I would feel like even as like a Seahawks fan or something, you got to give respect. I remember when I was a kid in school, obviously I grew up in Illinois, a Packers fan. Nobody liked the Packers, but everybody gave respect to Brett Favre. Right? Occasionally somebody would come up and trash Brett Favre, and there would be groups of Bears fans going around going, whoa, 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 man, come on. You can't say that about Brett Favre. I feel like that's how it is with Larry Fitzgerald. So, anyways, don't mean to go on a Larry Fitzgerald rant, but another great wide receiver, and yes, being able to learn from Larry Fitzgerald should be awesome for Cortland Sutton. Maybe a really, really good situation for him because this offense is better than what's being put out. Not having their running back is hurting them. They do need to get some offensive line help, which I'm assuming they will get later in the draft. As was pointed out earlier, there's a lot of guard depth in this class, so hopefully they get to hit on that a little bit. They already have a pretty decent defense. I know they've been struggling, but there's enough talent there. With Chandler Jones kind of holding down, there's a lot of old talent, which is kind of not great. You know, Antoine Bethea is awesome, but he's very, very old. But you got Budda Baker stepping up right away. Patrick Peterson is solid, obviously. You got Tramon Williams from the Packers, who's surprisingly playing pretty well, who I wanted to get back, but no, we went and got Devon House. Whatever. Anyways, with the Cardinals now, you got a decent defense. You get some vigor back in this team next year, right? We're better than that. We're a better team than that. We get our freakish running back back. We still got Larry Fitzgerald. Now we got the best running back in the draft playing on the other side while Fitzgerald is playing in the slot. Our quarterback's feeling good. We went and got some new offensive linemen to just fix this abomination of a high school, college, or high school offensive lineman. Jeez. High school offensive line. I'm trying to make a joke and I'm butchering it. And we're going to come back and we're going to do, playoffs. We'll see about that. But this is going to be a much improved team. I don't mind taking what seems to be maybe a luxury pick because in a sense it makes sense. We can address the offensive line as it goes. And you're not going to do the entire offensive line in the draft. There's just no way. I did that with the Packers in my 7-round mock draft, but we had like 13 picks, so give me a break. But you get maybe a couple guards in the center, get Frank Ragnow, or however you say his name, and Hernandez, and then maybe a tackle or a guard later on. Pair that, you're doing good, right? And then you got free agency, you can grab a couple pieces. I think you're going to be all right, man. I think this has the potential to be a really good team. Quarterback is in need at some point, but whatever. We'll get to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I like the pick. I think it's a good pick. Cortland Sutton to the Cardinals. Next up, with the 12th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Oakland Raiders select Connor Williams, tackle out of Texas. That was a tongue twister for some reason. Maybe I just need to get some coffee after this pick. Um, I've said it before. I think there's a good possibility Connor Williams ends up being the top tackle in the draft. We'll see what happens, but just for my personal sake, I have Connor Williams as my top tackle. I definitely need to watch a little more film on that because Mike McGlinchey still, I would say, is probably the favorite overall by a lot of people. If you were to take a poll, I would assume McGlinchey is going to be the top guy, but I like Connor Williams. He fell to the Raiders here at 12. Looking at their team, I'm thinking, as I've said before, and maybe more than just about any team, the Oakland Raiders need to get some help. Maybe, probably the Colts, because you got a guy like Andrew Luck who's one good hit away from just his career being over. This guy with his injuries has just been crazy. But the Raiders quarterback here, Carr, is following a similar trajectory. He's just getting beat up a lot. He's getting a lot of hits. He's stacking up the injuries. You've got a lot of potential if you can keep this quarterback healthy. If he gets knocked out, if you don't have him, this team is nothing. It's so hard in the NFL to find a franchise quarterback. The Raiders found him. Do anything and everything you can to protect him. So as I'm looking at this, you guys are doing decent right now. It's just you got to kind of figure out this offensive line. So from what I can tell, your center Rodney Hudson is playing really well. You got something pretty good going on there. Some decent guards, Osemele and Jackson. I don't know if that's how you say his name. Pretty decent there. Not great. I mean, any of these guys could be upgraded. There's no question. But good enough, I would say. And Donald Penn, not the greatest, but the point is beyond that. I was making fun of Marshall Newhouse before. I see now the name is Vadal Alexander. It doesn't matter. Nobody else is any good. And you can, listen, with Connor Williams, I can't say necessarily that you don't put him at left tackle because Penn isn't even all that great. If Penn can play right tackle, that's probably my preference, depending on how good Connor Williams does. If he is as good as I tend to think he is, which is maybe a top 10 talent, you might want to put him at left tackle and see if Penn can play right tackle. Whatever's the best combination is fine. Either way, you got to get this offensive line fixed. Carr's going to take hits. It's the nature of the NFL, but that needs to be your top priority, is getting this offensive line kind of touched up a little bit. Maybe grab another guard. Who knows? I don't know. You tell me. I'm just looking at Pro Football Focus, and I know he's taken too many hits, so I have to assume that even though these guys are graded average, and maybe it's just they're ugly hits. I don't know how many sacks he takes. Maybe he's just injury prone. Whatever. You tell me, though. But if I'm the GM of the Raiders, if I'm a coach, if I am involved in this organization, my number one priority is just keep him safe. Because it's not just about 2018 winning a Super Bowl, right? That's great. Pick the biggest need available. Let's go out and get a wide receiver. Let's get this elite guy who's going to propel us into the. Don't worry about Super Bowl quite yet. All right, there's maybe a few steps involved here, but number one, if you want this team to be a dynasty, a team that continues to do it year after year, continues to get into the playoffs, is a perennial Super Bowl contender every single year. Don't just shoot for today. Let's focus long term here. And Carr is the long term. He's still young. He's still very talented. Let's continue. The reason this team is as good as it is because they're building intelligently. They kept building that one piece every single year. They kept getting that one guy, right? You got Mack and you got Carr, and you got Amari Cooper, who inexplicably doesn't know how to play football this year, but whatever. Very good talent. What is going on with that? Tell me that, Raiders fans. Put that in the comments for me. Tell me what is going on there. But anyways, before I move on, the GM for that team is Ryan. Let me read his notes because he put quite a bit of notes here. So let's get it from the horse's mouth himself. Why did the Raiders select Connor Williams? After realizing drafting a new offensive coordinator was not an option, I had decided to go with the best available player on my big board. When healthy, Williams looks like Joe Thomas, and I have him rated as my third best overall prospect, so Ryan and I are on similar page there. I'm assuming he has him as his top tackle. Could be wrong. He's a big athletic tackle that rarely allows people around the edge. With Donald Penn at age 34 and Marshall Newhouse at right tackle looking like nothing more than a stand-in, Connor Williams could start at either tackle position next year depending on what Penn does, and being a long-term option at left tackle. So there you go, adding a little bit of extra in there that Penn's kind of at the end of his rope. But overall, I think it's a great pick. I just realized we're at 40 minutes. This is a nightmare. I need to speed this up. Next up, with the 13th overall pick in the NFL draft, the Redskins select Deron Payne, defensive lineman out of Alabama. GM for this pick is Michael, and here were his notes. The Redskins have the 28th ranked rush defense and are giving up 4.3 yards per carry in a division with two young studs, Zeke and Ajayi. Our run defense needs to improve. Jonathan Allen has shown promise, but more help is needed in our front seven. Payne is the best run-stuffing defensive tackle in the draft and should be an integral part of the defense next to ex-Bama teammate. Hail to the Redskins, he says. So looking it over, it does appear that, in my opinion anyways, nose tackle is probably the biggest need, but I guess I don't know that for sure. Ziggy Hood is kind of a joke. It looks like he's listed at 320, so I'm thinking he could probably play nose. But anyways, either way, you can't really argue with the logic of that. They need to improve their run defense, and it looks like they did. So Payne to the Redskins. With the 14th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Arden Key, edge rusher out of LSU. Kind of hard to miss with him, in my opinion. I feel like I say the same thing. I got to come up with new material, but Arden Key is a talented guy that has fallen for reasons that I can't necessarily understand. He is, when you look for comparisons, best I can tell, he's Myles Garrett. So someone needs to tell me why Myles Garrett has fallen to 14 and beyond. But it appears it was another group pick, so I'll let Anthony explain it. Why was this pick made? Miami Dolphins drafted Charles Harris last season, but taking another pass rusher to ease into the rotation and bring the heat as Cameron Wake ages only aids them in a division where they see Tom Brady twice per year. So yeah, if nothing else, I'm not even going to go there. Yes, I am going to go there. If nothing else, I get to see this guy hit Tom Brady, and that's going to make me feel good. I got to throw at least one dig in at the Patriots fans. They're going to win another Super Bowl, and it makes me angry. What do you want me to do? I got to vent a little bit. I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk about hitting Tom Brady. But maybe I will. We'll see how it goes. But, Arden Key is largely seen as a 3-4 guy, so kind of would be the one question there. If there are question marks about his ability, which there seems to be, which is why he's fallen down the board. If he's a top 5 guy, I say I don't really care if it's 4-3 or 3-4, but if he's sliding to mid or late first round, you got to look at the fact that he's a 3-4 guy, that he's kind of lightweight. Do you want him on a 4-3 team? Kind of iffy on that, but that is the pick. And the Dolphins need a lot of help in a lot of different places, so best player available makes a lot of sense in that situation. With the 15th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Orlando Brown, tackle. So, another group pick. Let's get to the... I think Keelan called it and Anthony explained it, so let's get to it. Outside of Russell Okung, the Los Angeles Chargers are still lacking in protection for Phillip Rivers. They need to shore up the line so Rivers has the time to find Allen, Mike Williams, and Hunter Henry. Orlando Brown is a massive lineman with road grading ability. If they choose to run behind this man with Melvin Gordon, his numbers could increase substantially. And something else to point out. They drafted Dan Feeney and Forrest Lamp last year. Now, Dan Feeney hasn't been great, but he's probably their best guard so far. That isn't saying much. He's not been playing very well. But again, potential for a second-year leap. But Forrest Lamp was, he was like the Quentin Nelson last year. Not quite as high of regard. He was kind of end of the first round talk, but still very talented. He was on IR all year, so I was really excited. Melvin Gordon was going to be like my sneaky thing in fantasy football because, he didn't have the greatest year. But now he's got these two guards that are just going to be road grading everybody. So you got Dan Feeney hopefully taking a second-year leap. You got Forrest Lamp just tearing up the NFL. Now you're adding a tackle on the other side of Russell Okung, possibly replacing him. But it would be nice if they could play together because Okung is the only somewhat reasonably talented tackle on the team. You now have a pretty good offensive lineman who's not only protecting your quarterback and giving him time to hit his talented wide receiver core that they've been building for a while, but now you've got some extra help for your running back who probably should be the feature on this team if I'm being honest. Next up, with the 16th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Tavares McFadden, cornerback. So, why do I say so every time after this? I don't know why I do that. It's very strange. I'm going to stop doing that. It's like I have tics. Guys who have certain tics, it's weird. Just certain things I do over and over, and I question why I do them. Something wrong with me mentally. So the GM for that was Errand. I'm not really sure how to say his name. We're going to call him Errand. But his reasoning for the draft was, I like McFadden a lot. He's a corner with good size and looks to have good speed for a corner. He produced for Florida State in his sophomore season. Now he seems like he has taken a step back this season. Well, that's not great. But I think if you understand the context for this team, you'll understand. Okay, so it's a little convoluted, but basically he's explaining why his lack of production wasn't necessarily his fault. The Florida State offense was terrible, so the defense was on the field more, and also that they were run on a lot. So it's hard to get a lot of picks when you have less people are throwing at you. So that's why stats, especially for corners, aren't necessarily the best thing. Who has the most picks? Well, if nobody throws at you because you're a lockdown corner, you're not going to get any picks, right? So that's sort of his summary of why that. So moving on to why he believes they're good for the Packers, he says he's a game changer. If you look at the 2017 draft class when Marshawn Lattimore went to the Saints had a bottom-tier defense, but when Lattimore started being comfortable with the playbook and defense, the Saints became arguably top 10 in the NFL. That just gets me very excited that he said that, because the Saints give me hope as a Packers fan. They do, because they've been near the bottom. The only reason the Packers haven't been probably the worst over the last 10 years is because the Saints have been the worst over the last 10 years. But to be able to just snap your fingers and grab a guy like Lattimore and a couple other pieces and to just have this great draft pick class. I mean, we got Kevin King last year. If he can take a second-year leap and we get a guy like Tavares McFadden to step up and do anything even close to what Marshawn Lattimore has done, man, oh man. And he also mentions, with McFadden, Randall, and King, that's a great group. And I tend to agree. King was always a project. Kevin King was, so he didn't have a great year, but everybody kind of knew coming into it. Elite talent. His height, he's 6'3", and he runs like a 4.42. He's incredibly fast. He's incredibly tall, athletic, but he's just kind of raw. So he's kind of one of those guys that you're looking at a second year kind of prospect. Randall he's been 3 years in, but he's just now starting to turn a corner. So yeah, if you look at King making a second-year leap, Randall making his fourth-year leap, whatever his problem is, and then McFadden coming in if, right? The stars have to align, but if and only if. Boy, oh boy, would I be excited, because that's really what's been holding this Packers team back. Defense in general, but secondary especially. It's the reason Aaron Rodgers cannot get another ring on that finger. Next up, with the 17th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Calvin Ridley, wide receiver, Alabama. So again, Keelan with the call and Anthony with the explanation. So here we go. Brashad Perriman was a complete bust. Mike Wallace is inconsistent and getting old, and Jeremy Maclin hasn't yet clicked with Joe Flacco and isn't a true number one wide receiver. Getting improvement from the receiver core is an absolute must for a team with a defense that may only have a few years left. Ridley gives them a receiver with consistent hands who could potentially mesh really well with Wallace and Maclin, helping to convert third downs and keep the offense on the field and an aging defense off the field. So, I mean, the one thing that comes out, I don't know. It makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. The only thing that it kind of sounds like we're saying here is, let's take advantage of this defense while it lasts and go all in. And I don't know. But at the same time, what are you going to do? Draft defense? Because you need offensive help anyway. So it's not like you're saying all in. I guess it's just the way he phrased it made it sound that way. But either way, it is a good pick. This team is just kind of in a lot of trouble. As he mentioned, this defense is kind of on the verge of falling apart. And it's a team that's sort of already fallen apart. And you've got a quarterback that's ready to go. You got a defense that's all ready to retire. And outside of that, the talent just isn't there. So, not to speak necessarily out of turn, and no offense to the Redskins, but if the Browns do in fact step up as I expect them to do, and the Bengals, only going to be getting better with their running back, and they still got A.J. Green, and they're going to be drafting offensive linemen, and the Steelers are still at the top of the pecking order over there, I kind of wonder if the Ravens are going to be the Browns for the next several years. That's just kind of how I see this thing going. I see them sitting at the bottom of that division for quite a while. And it could happen as early as 2018, to be completely honest with you. I know that seems crazy, but if the Browns get Rosen, why not? All they need is a quarterback to be a better team, and they got one. Moving on. Next up, with the 18th overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks select Darius Geis, running back, LSU. Explanation from the group. Seattle hasn't been nearly as successful since the loss of Marshawn Lynch. With a suspect offensive line and no running game to threaten the team with play action, Russell Wilson is beginning to take too many hits, and their defense is finding itself, I had to expand that there, on the field too often, which is beginning to lead to injuries. To give the defense the rest it needs and to compete with the NFC West teams who have pass rushers like Buckner, Donald, and Chandler Jones, the Seahawks need a three-down back who can bring the power running back to Seattle. No back on the board currently fits the mold of Lynch like Geis does. Biggest problem I have with that, and maybe I'm just a biased Packers fan, if you're looking for someone to step in and play like Lynch, you got Eddie Lacy on your team. Darius Geis is 5'11", 218. Eddie Lacy's 5'11", 253. So if you're looking for power, Eddie Lacy is power. And look, you can say Eddie Lacy's trash. You can say everybody on the Seattle Seahawks running backs are all trash. I'm not buying it. Everybody knows their offensive line is garbage. And everybody knows Eddie Lacy played better with the Packers than he's playing with the Seahawks. And we've seen talent from these other Seahawks running backs. My contention, get a better offensive line and stick with the running backs you have. There's talent there. There is talent. I know Eddie Lacy's fat, but you know what? You've all seen him run wild with the Packers. I know you've seen it. So, in my opinion, you're just adding another running back to this group of guys, and maybe he does better than all the rest of them. He probably will do better than the rest. But without an offensive line, what does it matter? So, I don't know. Not my favorite pick. I guess I'm just kind of anti-running back for Seattle. I just don't buy it. I just don't. I think they need offensive line. I think they have enough talent. Not elite talent, but they have enough talent. With the 19th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Clelin Ferrell, edge rusher, Clemson. They didn't give a reason for this group pick. I have to assume it's just a value pick, would be my assumption. Personally, I like linebacker here because that's a bigger need for the team. But if you think Clelin Ferrell is like a top 10 talent, which some people seem to think that, the pick definitely makes sense. They don't necessarily have elite talent, but I mean, you look at like this Zettel guy, whoever he is, took a massive second-year leap. You still got Ezekiel Ansah over there. I don't know. I mean, which one of those guys are you going to bench? And you rotate players, so yeah, you got a rotational guy, I guess. But you look at the cornerbacks. Jalen Tabor, or Tease Tabor, hasn't really stepped up the way that I had hoped because he was my guy. DJ Hayden is garbage. I don't know. I think linebacker is a good one. Corner would be a good one. You could just as easily go defensive line with some pretty good defensive line talent still on the board. Offensive line, I think, is a big need. I know they went out and grabbed a bunch of guys, but that doesn't mean they're any good. Taylor Decker, for some reason, took a massive step back. Corey Robinson isn't doing anything. TJ Lang was better with the Packers than he is with the Lions. I don't know what's going on over there. Glasgow took a little bit of a step, but he's still listed as an average player. Joe Dahl, same situation, took a pretty big step, but he's still listed as an average player. So, you got some young talent. Maybe somebody's going to step up. Decker, maybe there's a reason he's taking a step back. He's fighting through an injury, so maybe you don't hate it. But at the very least, you can get another tackle on the board at right tackle, I would assume. I don't know. So, another running back is a huge need. Offensive lineman, cornerback, linebacker, all these things I think are big needs. So unless you just think that this guy is an absolute freak show and has to go off the board, it's not my favorite pick. But it's all right. He'll fit in a 4-3. Supposedly, people think he's elite talent. I'm still not necessarily on that bandwagon yet, but we'll see what happens. So, Clelin Ferrell to the Lions. With the 20th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select, guy that should have went to the Lions, Roquan Smith, linebacker, Georgia. So I would say in terms of Dallas, this would be another value pick, and I think as a value, based on the big boards that I've seen, I think it's a great value. This is pick 20. I've seen him go like as high as like 12-ish. So I think if you're looking at it as he's the best guy on the board, great. You've already got Sean Lee. Obviously, he's not getting replaced. He is the field general. He's an awesome football player. Anthony Hitchens is playing pretty good football. But Jalen Smith, and that's tough too because Jalen Smith is a rookie. So I guess if you replace him, You're assuming he doesn't take a leap. And what if he does take a second-year leap? Now you got three pretty good linebackers on your team. What do you do with the guy? You've got in your first round. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough call. It probably wouldn't have been my pick. Defensive lineman, very big need for this team. I don't know what else could you do here. Offensive line. I've been saying it for quite a while now. You got to continue to get this offensive line going now. Um, now you look at the tackle situation, and I'm seeing, was Tyron Smith hurt? It looks like. So now they're operating with Frederick and Martin as their only two. And again, the good linemen that they have are incredibly good, but behind them they have no depth at all. Offensive lineman, wide receiver, tight end, defensive line, even defensive end potentially as a rotational thing is an option. Linebacker though, I don't know. In terms of value, it's great. In terms of the need, it's not my favorite. With a 21st pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Harold Landry, edge rusher, Boston College. The GM for that was Joshua M. We'll leave it at that. We'll call him Josh, I guess. I think it's a great pick. I think it's a good pick for 3-4. I think it's one of their biggest, if not their biggest need of all. Harold Landry is definitely a 3-4 outside linebacker, and I've seen him on some boards as a very good value here. I guess that's kind of up in the air. Put your comments in the comment section, I guess, on what you think about Harold Landry. I've seen him listed as the top pass rusher. I know that sounds stupid, but I've seen it. Just throwing it out there. So going at this value, going this late in the first, I think is a great value for the Tennessee Titans. Great pick, Josh. With the 22nd pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Christian Wilkins, defensive lineman out of Clemson. So Wilkins fell way too far, especially when you have teams, like I mentioned, the Cowboys, the Lions, quite a few teams could have used defensive linemen. So to be able to fall into the lap of the Bills, I think that's pretty awesome. Their run defense, I mean, they've got Micah Hyde and Poyer. Is that how you say it? I don't know. But then you got Tre'Davious White, who came out of nowhere. I mean, I saw early on in the year Tre'Davious was kind of like he was up there with some of the better ones, but he was kind of, Kevin King was kind of up there too with Tre'Davious, and it was kind of a battle between them with Marshawn Lattimore being like the top guy. Tre'Davious White is, Pro Football Focus has him graded as elite. Let me just put it that way. Elite. Top 5 corner in the NFL. I'm not going to give his exact position or grade, but he's elite and top 5. Incredible what he's doing. E.J. Gaines playing great. The defensive backs on this team are awesome. So, I know a lot of people want quarterback. And can I just say, and Bills fans, listen, I understand that you watch every game and you're frustrated with Tyrod Taylor, but I'm coming from this from an outside perspective when I say I don't think Tyrod Taylor is that bad. And I know he was benched and all that stuff and he got put back in. Right now, Tyrod Taylor is listed as good. Okay? Now, think how bad it's going to be if you lose your quarterback. He's listed inside the top 15, by the way. Look how bad quarterbacks are around the NFL. Look how bad it was when you replaced him with whatever is nuts, the guy that's never going to play a snap of football for the rest of his life. I'm just saying it could be a whole lot worse than Tyrod Taylor. I know he's not elite. I know he's not like a great Super Bowl quarterback, but his grade is nearly as high as LaShawn McCoy's. And maybe you don't trust the grades. I don't really care. Point is, and it's same with like fantasy football. He never gets any respect, but he does decent. It's just, I don't know. I feel like he's average to above average, and everybody acts like he is like a bottom 4, bottom 5 quarterback. He's not. With needs at wide receiver, with needs at offensive line, at defensive line, at linebacker, why would quarterback be your top? I just don't see it. I just don't get it. So, Bills fans, you can continue to trash me. I'm sticking by my guns here. I don't see Tyrod Taylor as being that horrible of a thing. And just look at the Jets. Look at all these other teams who have been trying year after year after year to just get anybody nearly as good as Tyrod Taylor on their team, please, just so we can win a game. I'm just saying, get him a little more help at wide receiver, because right now your wide receivers are listed as pure trash, and Clay. I'm talking horrible. Holmes, Jones, Thompson, Clay. Maybe that's why Taylor's ranked as suck. That's why you guys think he's so terrible. He doesn't have anyone to throw to, and he doesn't have a great offensive line. Maybe that's the problem. I'm just saying. Anyway, so we'll get quarterback off the minds of everyone for a while, and I think wide receiver is kind of important. Probably some decent value here at wide receiver. But their run defense, I guess, is kind of what I was getting at to begin with. Their defensive backs are great, but their run defense is not as good as it should be. They need linebackers. They could use a defensive end. They definitely need some help at defensive line, and a guy that has been listed as a top 10 talent has fallen to them all the way down to whatever pick we're on. So I think it's a great pick for the Bills. I'm trying not to rant so much because we just hit an hour. With the 23rd pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Will Hernandez, guard, UTEP. Phoenix was the GM for this team. He didn't give me any insights on it, but I think it's a very good pick. It depends on how you value Hernandez. I know a lot of people see him as an early second, so maybe it's a reach. But I've also seen a lot of respect for him as being definitely a first-round prospect. Either way, I think guard is probably the biggest need for the team, and assuming the value, you're okay with it, I think it's a great pick. Will Hernandez to the Falcons. With the 24th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Rashaan Evans, linebacker, out of Alabama. Once again, we'll turn to our correspondent on the ground, Anthony, with the explanation. Saints are looking great on defense, but have a few weak spots, such as Kenny Vaccaro at safety and Monte Teo at inside linebacker, in a division that features Christian McCaffrey, Freeman, and Martin. Help is needed at inside linebacker, and with another great Alabama inside linebacker on the board, he fits a need without having to reach. Perhaps not a Reuben Foster type game changer, but similar to all Bama backers, he will be incredibly solid. And considering New Orleans was going to take Foster last year, they got their Bama linebacker this draft. Another very good insight there by our crew on the ground. Next up, with the 25th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Billy Price, guard/center, out of Ohio State. So the GM for the Buffalo Bills was Silas, back on the Bills board. It does appear that he's going to be drafted as a center, which is his pride. I mean, as a center, he's widely regarded as the best talent out there. As a guard, he's probably still a top 10 talent, and that's sort of what Silas said. He's also a guard, which gives the Buffalo Bills some flexibility. I mentioned offensive line as a potential talent. Talent as a potential need. I don't think it's their biggest need, but pretty much anywhere along the offensive line, you could probably argue that there's some potential for getting rid of people. Incognito has been phenomenal, but he's getting pretty old at guard. Eric Wood, he's very up and down, right? 2015 had a good year, 2016 a bad year, this year he's pretty average. Ducasse is having probably his best year since his rookie year, and that's not saying much. He's been horrible for the last 4 years. So along the interior in particular, there's a lot of potential. Obviously, a guy of this caliber, you're planning to replace Eric Wood. He's been in the league for, 3, 6, 9 years. So he's getting up there in age as well. So an instant starter, probably not the biggest need, but I would assume Silas has him as the top prospect. First time I've seen Billy Price in the first, so that's also pretty exciting as well. So new name for the Buffalo Bills, a new name for our mock draft community. Billy Price to the Bills. Next up, with the 26th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Vita Vea, defensive lineman, nose tackle, out of Washington. So in terms of value, I love it because I think Vita Vea is far too, he's going way too late and sometimes completely out of the first round. I think he's maybe the best defensive tackle. I mean, he's a nose tackle, which I know a lot of people shy away, but even 4-3 teams, you look at a lot of 4-3 teams like Washington use nose tackles in their scheme. A lot of teams, even that are 4-3, have guys that are the same weight as Vita Vea, and then take into effect that he actually moves very quickly. So a lot of times with nose tackles, part of the problem is, or guys of this size, they only put him at 3-4 nose tackle because he's a guy that doesn't move, right? He's a big Gilbert Brown guy that just kind of stands there and doesn't let anybody push him around. But this guy can move. So when you look at function, the guy can actually move around as well as a lot of just the 305-pound guys. With that said, however, Jacksonville going defense is very questionable. They need help on offensive line. They need presumably they need a quarterback, wide receiver. Defense is not the biggest thing. And then you factor in they've got Calais Campbell. I know he's getting old, but man, oh man, the guy gets better every year. I mean, seriously, his last 2 years, this year and last year, were his best 2 years of his entire career. Then you got Malik Jackson on the inside next to him. These two guys are elite level players. RB Jones is probably who we're looking at as a replacement. That's my thought. That was the note I gave myself. RB Jones, they are a 4-3 team. It's another example of why would they take Vita Vea? They're a 4-3 team. RB Jones, who is their least talented guy, he is their base defensive tackle. He is, I believe, 320 pounds. So it's a very similar prospect. So that's kind of what I'm thinking here. You have RB Jones is being replaced, and then in their nickel package, Calais Campbell is a nose tackle. So if he's gone, you've basically got that kind of a situation there where you're filling in for your defensive line. I don't know if he's going to be a nickel. Maybe he's going to come out. So the Calais Campbell thing is just kind of unnecessary. But if he can stay in there in the nickel, which is probably unlikely because he's 320 pounds. But if he can, then you're kind of replacing two people at once. But at the very least, we've got our in our base defense now. You've got Calais Campbell. You've got Malik Jackson. You've got Ngakwe on the outside, who's just really stepped up. And now you got Vita Vea in there instead of RB Jones. So I guess we're just kind of going with the stack and success thing. It's not my favorite pick, but I do love Vita Vea and his value here. I do think he fits a role. Again, it's just a straight swap out. We're getting rid of RB Jones. We're putting in Vita Vea. But offense needs to be a priority here. They need to get better there. So, yeah, we'll call it a value pick. Next up, with the 27th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the LA Rams select Denzel Ward, cornerback out of Ohio State. I'm going to kick it to my people on the ground. Anthony with the comments. Rams have franchise tagged Tremaine Johnson for 2 straight years, and he just isn't playing up to the level he'll want to be paid. Someone will pay the man, but the Rams' new coach McVay will be smarter than that and take a cornerback in the draft who not only may be better, but now is certainly the higher upside for the future. I'm good with that. We'll leave it at that. Next up, with the 28th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Durance Armstrong, edge rusher, Kansas. GM for that pick was Chris, and here are Chris's GM notes. Julius Peppers and Charles Johnson are old, and along with Thomas Davis, are all at the end of their careers. The Panthers need to look to the future and start to introduce more youth on the defensive side of the ball. Armstead has the ability to be a number 1 pass rusher and produce in the NFL. He has double-digit sack potential and a great speed and a good motor, and is the best available pass rusher at this spot, as well as being a good value due to other players like Harold Landry and Clelin Ferrell being taken despite them being behind Durance Armstrong on my draft board. So again, I love it when people give me or tell me about their draft board because it gives me the ultimate insight, right? I mean, it's just kind of exciting. Imagine having a draft board and you've got Durance Armstrong at like number 18 overall, and guys who you have drafted or graded behind are getting picked, and your guy Durance just keeps falling and falling, and he falls right into your lap. It just adds a level of excitement for me personally, and hopefully also for you, to be able to get a little insight into what Chris went through as a GM, just watching your guy fall, just going, please, 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 especially when I say no trades, and you're thinking, just let me trade. He's right there. I want to take him. So fell into his lap. That's pretty exciting, and we'll leave it at that. With the 29th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Mark Andrews, tight end, Oklahoma. Going to my guys on the ground, here are the notes. Pittsburgh has no reliable tight ends. Jesse James is a number 2 at best, and Vance McDonald is inconsistent and injury-prone. A tight end is the biggest need for this team. If they can get a reliable tight end to pair with Bell and Brown, then whoever is at quarterback next season will have more than enough weapons to choose from. Plus, not enough credit is given to game-changing tight ends. Just ask Tom Brady how it was not having Gronk against the Dolphins. Mark Andrews will give you blocking and receiving. As it stands now, they have a great blocker in McDonald and inconsistent with they have a great blocker in McDonald with inconsistent hands and a decent receiver in James who isn't a great blocker. Why not get a tight end who can do both? Sounds good. Moving on. With the 30th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Jair Alexander, cornerback, Louisville. So the GM for this pick was Trevor, and I gotta say, Trevor is a madman because before his pick, he let us all know that he might not be out for his pick because he's about to go in for ACL surgery. So comes out of surgery and makes his selection for the Vikings, despite the fact that he was giving me crap about being a Packers fan and the Packers not making the playoffs the entire time. I got to give him some love and respect for the dedication. The man comes out from under the knife and makes a pick. That's a hardcore GM right there. Here are Trevor's notes. Alexander was a preseason All-American whose season was lackluster due to a few injuries, mostly the hand suffered in the opener versus Purdue. Moving on. Jair has been a great shutdown corner. Jair, I keep calling him Jair. Got to stop that. Was a great shutdown corner and would fit great into Terrence Newman's role after this year or next. The Vikings do already have Trey Waynes, but he isn't developing quite like they expected. This, coupled with the fact that the Vikings use a nickel package most often, check my facts on that, means that Alexander provides them with great versatility in defensive play calling. I'm assuming check my facts on that was not what I was supposed to read out loud. I was supposed to actually do that and then not read it. But hey, we're all learning. I could just edit that, but I don't feel like it. Note, had this draft allowed trades, I would have attempted to drop 10-15 spots and made the same selection. However, I think Alexander would have been a top 20 pick, and had he not gotten injured this year, and the Vikings would be liking to snag it. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I get the point, Trevor. Bottom line, good pick and go Packers. All right. Next up, with the 31st pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Malik Jefferson, linebacker, Texas. So on this one we have Brady making the call and Anthony doing the notes. So I'm a little confused as to how that works out. I'm not sure if Brady was the GM or not, but we'll say Brady was the GM and Anthony once again is the man on the ground making the call. What's it going to be, Anthony? Here's the notes. Putting someone inside who is a run stuffer with Dante Hightower is smart for New England. Hightower is a great pass rusher and good in coverage, but could use help on the inside with run fits. Jefferson is a good value pick here and fits a rare Patriots need. Yes, indeed, a need at inside linebacker for the 50th time. Your linebackers are not good. Sorry to tell you. Moving on. Finally, with the 32nd pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Isaiah Wynn, offensive tackle, Georgia. For the final time, we go to our man on the ground, Anthony, who says Philly has a franchise quarterback, 3 talented running backs, 3 talented tight ends, and a stable of wide receivers. Their offensive line is good, but they could use an upgrade in talent. Honestly, this was a pick by the group to get the best offensive lineman available in hopes that he could use his pure talent to offset his lack of size to eventually replace Jason Peters. In the meantime, he'd be an immediate upgrade to the interior line in place of Stefan Wisniewski. Good enough, folks. So that's it. That is Mock Draft 7.1, we're calling it. Again, as always, check all the links in the description. Be sure to join in the Facebook group. And as always, be sure to give anything when you look at these things here, if I could just get, what are we saying here? If I could get 5% of you to give $5 a month, we'd be good to go. I wouldn't have to beg you for money anymore. I probably still would, because why not? But it's just, that would be it. I would give you a reprieve for a while. 5% of you, $5 a month. And I would just be quiet for maybe 2 whole weeks. You wouldn't have to hear me begging for money. Just something to think about. I know it doesn't seem like much, and I know when there's, as many people watching these videos as are watching these videos, you can figure, somebody else will cover it. If you got $5, just throw me $5, man. I don't want to sit here and beg. I'm a grown man. I got pride. It's not fun. But this stuff costs money. I got a website now. I got a YouTube channel. I got a Facebook group. I got Pro Football Focus. I got the FanSpeak. I got NFL, whatever it is where you can watch all the games. I got a lot of stuff that's costing money, and my wife is yelling at me all the time. And I'm just saying, if you got $5, hook a brother up. Otherwise, like I said, affiliate links in the description. Anything you can do. If with Christmas coming up, you want a Pro Football Focus subscription, talk to mom, dad, grandma, wife, cousin, brother. Say, hey, I want Pro Football Focus. By the way, here's a link. Use this link. Buy me Pro Football Focus. I'm just saying, if you got it, get it. I'm going to end it with that. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. You folks have a good day. We got a 7.2 should be up hopefully, I don't know, tomorrow. I'm not really sure how the schedule is going to break down, but it's coming soon. Stay tuned. This draft is not over. Have a good night. Bye-bye.